the second PowerPoint on metaethics. So the last one was, how ethics is in society, and now this one is going to be the two key distinctions of ethical language that we need to look into to before we start going into the detail. So this is a change from normative ethics to the investigation of the language of ethics. And so instead of saying, okay, here's a checklist of things that we should look at and the criteria that we should meet to decide what to do, this is more about what do we mean about these moral terms like good, bad, right and wrong. What do they actually refer to, if indeed they refer to anything at all? So for one standpoint is that they refer to something real in the world. It is making claims about something that is real, that is mind independent, that is objective. The other viewpoint is going to be that it refers to something not real and in the world. Okay, so it's not in the world, it's not real. So for example, your feelings are very subjective, it's very mind dependent. So there are the two main pairs of philosophical positions. They are called realism and anti-realism. So number one refers to realism, something real in the world. Number two is anti-realism, in that it is not real in the world. It is not referring to anything in the world. And then two new keywords, cognitivism and non-cognitivism. We will come to those two keywords in a little bit later. Okay, so for example, what we have moral realism and anti-realism, how the realist might respond to different contested terms. So I'll give it a couple of examples here. So what you have, you've got beauty, the academic discipline, the aesthetics. Now, a realist, when I say this term, refers to beautiful things out there in the world. So for example, like Plato, he would talk about the realm of the forms and that there was a perfect form of beauty which we recognize, and then when we see beautiful things in the world, we are actually able to associate that with the form of beauty. But an anti-realist would say that our responses to objects that we have been socially conditioned to call beautiful. So for example, as you go through the ages, the people's idea of beautiful, a beautiful person, has changed throughout the ages. You look at different artists and paintings through the Romantic period, the shape of men and women are very different as they go through the centuries. So their idea of beauty changes. You look at different cultures and their idea of beauty, it varies from culture to culture. So therefore, beauty is not something that is out there in the world, that is an objective mind independent truth. It is a socially conditioned response. If we look at something like the bottom one, right, you see red and electron and the realist and anti-realist response to those particular contested terms. But if you look at the contested term of wrong, obviously it comes in moral philosophy. So a realist might say that the extent to which an action produces pain and suffering. And anti-realist might say this term refers to an expression of our disapproval at certain types of action. If you can see the difference between the two, one is a personal response, it's an expression, it's an emotion. The other one is not about emotion. It is about referring to natural processes, natural, observable, verifiable actions and responses that we can then actually say, yeah, there is an absolute wrong. There is something called wrong that is in the universe that we can refer to, and then we can apply that to moral philosophy. So obviously these are two very different viewpoints when it comes to looking about what do we mean by the word wrong and what do we mean by the word good. Now, cognitivism and non-cognitivism. So very simply, cognitivism is about making propositional claims which refer to the world. Statements are meaningful if they refer to the world, even if the statement is false. Now, we're going to go into this in a lot more detail, especially when we look at A.J. Ayer and the verification principle and about what is a meaningful statement. Now, a non-cognitivist, their claims are not propositional. as they do not refer to the world. This does not mean moral statements are meaningless, but they refer to subjective mind-dependent thought. Now, clearly, somebody who believes that in a cognitive way would think that actually moral statements are meaningless. A.J. Ayer is going to be one of the main people that we look at who would argue that moral statements are meaningless because they are not verifiable. But we'll go into more detail on that in another PowerPoint. Okay, so those are the two main key things. One, cognitivism, you're making claims that refer to the world. Non-cognitivism, you are not making claims that refer to the world. So, for example, if we put the table out here, at the top, you can see there are 5 main theories that we're going to look at. Moral naturalism, moral non-naturalism, very often that's called intuitionism. You've got error theory, emotivism, and prescriptivism. You've then got the different philosophers associated with those different theories. And then underneath that, do ethical terms refer to something mind independent? So the moral realism, cognitivism, yes, but one is going to say it's natural properties, and the intuition is going to be actually there are non-natural properties that we need to look at. So there's a disagreement there. They both agree that there is a mind independent right and wrong, but they disagree on how you access it. Now, as you can see, error theory is it's the odd one out in that it fits in the moral anti-realism side of things, but it is a cognitivist theory. So we will look at that in a bit more detail later on. Now, emotivism and prescriptivism. So for them, do ethical terms refer to something mind independent? Again, they will both agree that no, they don't. When you were saying something is wrong, you're not saying it's wrong because you've got scientific proof it's wrong. You're saying it's wrong because either you're expressing an emotion or you are given a command. There's an expectation on how we behave. So there is neither true or false, and that is non-cognitivism. So that is a really quick just overview really of the main key terms of realism, anti-realism, cognitivism, and non-cognitivism. So the next slide, we're going to start looking into realism in a lot more detail.